Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film The End We Start From, directed by Mahalia Belo. So this is a post-apocalyptic story. It's about an environmental crisis in the UK where a massive flood hits London, and at the time that the flood occurs, a mother is giving birth. I wasn't really sure of the purpose of the flood and the mother's waters breaking at the same time. It's too much of a coincidence, so it must be some kind of metaphor, but it went over my head. The film is slow, it's understated, it's never over dramatic. There's not very much action for a post-apocalypse film. We are aware that there's chaos, we're always aware of big chaos, but it's very much sidelined. It reminded me of a 1970s TV series that I saw as a teenager, Survivors, which was a low-budget BBC sci-fi series where people have survived a pandemic, and it's set mainly in the countryside. It kind of had a similar feel. The cinematography from The End We Start From I did find impressive. The camera is often waist height and close to its subjects looking up, and it does create a kind of general sense of uneasiness. I also liked the shots of the mother and baby. It was very close camera work and captured quiet moments, really the intimacy between the mother and child despite the chaos. Although the film did have a low budget feel to it, it did have one big set piece where the water comes crashing through the window, and at least this seemed to be real. It didn't seem to be CGI. I did find this impressive. Another shot I liked was where the camera, it was on the island where the camera started from one side of the room and it zoomed towards the window. It slowly zooms, keeps going, and it goes through the window, and we see a person on the beach. I did think it was going to go all the way, a really exciting shot and zoom right up to the person. But the curtain blows into the shot when the camera seems to be outside. Of course, the camera hasn't moved at all. It's all zoom. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this shot was, but it's beautiful photography. The film is a scary look at what would happen in a situation like this, how fear makes people really selfish. And it seems to be true to life that this kind of chaos would prevail. Now, I'm not a pessimist, but something like this could happen. COVID showed us our fragility and the complacency we have in thinking that we'll just be able to continue living the same kind of lifestyles that we do. The scenes on the island are interesting. It seems like an idyllic community away from the chaos. However, it's very controlled. For example, people are discouraged from feeling their feelings too much. It's pointed out that it doesn't work if one person isn't fully present. So these people aren't necessarily living. It's just another form of surviving. The island does raise these kind of interesting ethical questions, whether the people there just have an attitude of, I'm all right, Jack. When our main characters meet Dominic Cumberbatch, he's been to the island and he implies that he couldn't live like that when others are suffering. The general theme of this film is that you can't rely on many people because at the end of the day, people are fearful and selfish and they'll act according to that. However, the small gestures of friendship and companionship are really important. And this is a film, I think, about friendship. Even in loneliness, when we only have ourselves, there are always decent people along the way. This doesn't seem to be a very happy world. Even before the flood occurs, we get a snapshot of our mother's life prior to the disaster. There's a sense of loneliness, of when she's having a bath. There's a melancholy about the scene. Her partner doesn't seem to be available on the phone when her waters break. There's a general sense of unhappiness. The husband is a really strange character, I found. I wasn't really sure of the point of the flashbacks showing us how their romance started. Some of the scenes with the husband I did find almost over sentimental. But there's no happy story here. The husband couldn't cope with the responsibility. Even he became really selfish. I do wonder if we had a preview of his selfishness when he wasn't available at the start of the film when she's trying to call him. In terms of the acting, Jodie Comer just steals the show. She really carries the film. The film relies heavily on her. As always with Jodie, she's a fantastic actor. I did find that the characters at the commune lacked a bit of depth, but perhaps that was the point. This was supposed to be a kind of hollow community. By the way, notice that I keep referring to the characters. None of the characters are actually named in the film, except for the baby, whose name is created after the flood. Perhaps this relates to the title, The End We Start From. There is a very obvious meaning here, I guess, that the baby's life starts from the end of the world. And is this implying the birth of something new? However, I like the ambiguity of the title because the end is always a new starting point. At a deeper level, it made me think of T.S. Eliot's poem East Coker, where he says, "In my beginning is my end." I do wonder if the whole thing is a metaphor for motherhood. Her life is certainly changed beyond recognition from the moment when the baby was born, and perhaps the flood is a bigger metaphor. Maybe. There's been criticism of the pacing of this film, that it doesn't maintain the same level of engagement as it progresses. For me, I did find it slow at the beginning and it took me a while to engage, but it did draw me in as it progressed, kind of the opposite of these critiques. Overall, this film hasn't left me thinking about it afterwards. Why is this, I can ask? It's a fact that the way it's understated is good, but I do think that this also makes it not very memorable. There's very little peril in this film, despite the chaos. I just wasn't really involved. There's a kind of flatness to the whole film. It is perfectly enjoyable and interesting, but I wouldn't highly recommend it. That said, I don't think many people would find it disappointing, and it did get widespread release and was screened for quite a few weeks. Given that it is almost an art house movie, it did seem to find an audience, which must mean it has something. It is worth seeing, I would say, overall. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.